In a city where millions pass each other without ever locking eyes, where elevators hum, doors shut tight, and every wall holds someone else's secrets, there are places where silence isn't empty. It listens, it remembers, and sometimes it watches. Welcome to Ghosts of Asia, where ancient spirits cling to modern lives, and every hallway, mirror, or flickering screen might be more than it seems. Tonight, we take you into the heart of Tokyo, into the hum of a forgotten apartment near Ikebukuro Station, where a man named Riku thought he'd found peace and affordability. What he found was a woman waiting. A woman the living no longer name. A woman who never stopped ringing, even after death. This is not just a ghost story. It's a ritual of recognition, a warning, a question whispered through circuitry and static. Can you see her now? The key was heavier than he expected. It clinked against the chain of his bag as Riku stepped out of the elevator and into the narrow hallway of the 7th floor. The walls were faded beige, the kind that had once been white but had long since absorbed every decade of Tokyo's grime and breath. Room 701 was the last door on the left, tucked into a quiet corner as if it wanted to be forgotten. He liked that. Riku was 26, a freelance video editor. A little reclusive, a little tired. Not lonely exactly, but grateful for silence. After 2 years of couch surfing and overpriced shared flats, this apartment was a blessing. The rent was cheap, the location, Ikebukuro, was convenient, and the building, though old, had a kind of worn dignity. It wasn't the glossy type of place you'd see in a real estate brochure, but it didn't feel haunted. Not yet. He paused at the door. The nameplate was blank. That was normal in Tokyo. No one wanted to be known anymore. He turned the key. A soft click. The door gave way with a dry creak, revealing the shadowed hush of room 701. It was small, just under 30 square meters, kitchenette near the entrance, a single room with tatami mats worn smooth. Frosted glass sliding doors opened to a tiny balcony overlooking the train tracks below. It smelled of old wood and something faintly metallic. Not unpleasant, just aged. And there, beside the front door, mounted in the wall like a forgotten relic, was the intercom unit. Old-fashioned, early 2000s at best. Plastic yellowing at the edges. A small black and white screen, a cracked button marked Towa, call, and a narrow speaker grill. Most buildings had smart bells now, with cloud storage and mobile sync. But this one, analog, manual, outdated. Riku pressed the screen button out of curiosity. Static. He shrugged and dropped his bags inside. The landlord was waiting for him downstairs. A man in his 50s, with tired eyes and the practiced coldness of someone who had seen tenants come and go too often to remember their names. "You're all moved in?" he asked. Riku nodded. "Room 701 is quiet. Corner unit. No neighbors on one side. Sunlight in the morning." "It's great," Riku said, honestly. Why was it vacant so long? The landlord paused just briefly, a twitch at the corner of his mouth. "People in the city move often. Young folks. Jobs change. Rent shifts. It happens." A perfectly useless answer. But Riku didn't press. He'd learned not to. In Tokyo, digging only got you ghosts you couldn't put back. That night he slept with the window open. The sound of distant trains lulled him into a drowsy rhythm. At 2 a.m., the city was quieter than he expected. Peaceful. No traffic, no shouting, No sirens, just stillness. Then, a buzz. Short, mechanical, unexpected. He sat up in bed, heart thumping. Was it the doorbell? He stumbled out of bed, bare feet against the wooden floor, and walked toward the front door. The intercom screen was still glowing. He pressed the button. Static. Just white noise. No voice, no image. He waited. Then the screen flickered. A faint blur appeared in the lower corner. Dark, misshapen, unmoving, like a smudge, or someone standing just at the edge of the frame. He blinked. It was gone. The screen went black. No knock, no footsteps retreating. No one at the door when he opened it. Nothing. Just silence. The next morning, he told himself it was a glitch. Old tech often misfired. Maybe a voltage surge. Maybe heat from the wall. Still, he couldn't shake the image. The blur. It didn't look like an object. It looked like someone. Riku spent the day unpacking. His editing setup went near the window. Dual monitors, a small ring light, a cluttered tangle of cables. His routine was simple. Freelance video edits for low-tier YouTubers, some marketing reels, the occasional horror short. He liked horror. He didn't believe in it, but it paid well, and he was good at cutting tension, timing a scream to hit just right, framing shadows in ways that made them feel like they were watching you. That night, he stayed up late, editing, coffee, white noise. At 2:17 a.m., buzz. Again. He stared at the intercom screen already glowing before he touched it. This time, there was nothing, just static. But for a moment, just before the signal cut, he thought he saw a sliver of hair, long, black, hanging into frame, like someone leaning too close to the lens. Then gone. He didn't sleep after that. He searched online for the intercom model, looking for signs of known glitches. Nothing matched. No motion detection, no memory, no recordings, just a simple camera. But it was waking on its own. 3 nights, 3 buzzes, always at 2:17 a.m. Always static. Always something. By the end of the week, Riku stopped checking the screen. He began to unplug the unit before bed. But every morning it was reconnected. He was sure he'd unplugged it, positive. And yet it buzzed. And each time it did, something in him began to tighten. A coil pulling tighter in his chest. Not fear, not yet, but something close. A presence. A sense that room 701 did not want to be alone. On the 7th night, he left the unit plugged in. He set his phone to record, propped it up in front of the intercom, just to see, just to prove he wasn't losing it. At 2:17 a.m., the buzz came, and this time, the screen lit up before the button was pressed. No static, just a woman, standing inches from the lens, wearing a black kimono, head bowed, hair long and unwashed. Her lips were moving, but there was no sound. And Riku, watching in real time, frozen, realized something impossible. Her eyes were closed, but her lips kept moving, mouthing words over and over, faster now, like she was begging, like she was weeping. And then, the screen cut to black. When he played back the video, the file was corrupted. Its name had changed. You forgot my face. .mov. It became a ritual. Riku didn't want it to be, but rituals rarely need permission. Every night, As the hour crept toward 2, his body responded before his thoughts could catch up. His shoulders tensed, his hands slowed on the keyboard. He stopped editing, stopped thinking, and just listened to the subtle shift in the room's silence. Tokyo was never truly quiet, but there was a kind of negative stillness that bloomed around 2 a.m., a hush that felt less like silence and more like absence, like the world was holding its breath. And always, at exactly 2:17 a.m., the buzz came. Short, sharp, mechanical. It shouldn't have been frightening. It was just a sound, a button press, a flicker of electricity through old copper wires. But after a week of it, the sound had begun to change. It didn't come from the intercom anymore. Not only there. It came from inside his chest, like something was echoing through him. That night, he didn't check the monitor. He didn't want to see her. The woman in the black kimono, the one with the bowed head and the silent mouth, the one who had appeared without announcement, without logic, without face. He told himself he wouldn't look, but still, he waited. Back turned to the door, muscles locked, staring at the blank wall like it might split open and confess something. Buzz. He jumped. The sound was deeper this time, slower, like it had traveled a long way to reach him. He turned toward the intercom. It was already glowing. No one had touched it. He crossed the room. 1 step, 2. His feet felt heavier than they should, as if each tile was thicker, pulling him downward. He pressed the screen. No static, just darkness. But not the kind of black you get from a disconnected camera. This black was moving. Subtle, shifting textures like fabric brushing against the lens. Then, a face, half lit. Not hers, his own face. But the eyes were wrong, too wide, unblinking. Riku reached out instinctively, touched the screen. The feed cut out. He backed away, closed the laptop, sat in the corner of the room like a child, knees pulled tight. The buzz didn't come again that night, but something worse did. The dreams. At first, they were just flashes, flickers behind his eyelids. An empty hallway, a cracked door, a woman kneeling with her face pressed to a speaker grill, whispering into it like a confessional. She never turned around. He never got closer. Until the 3rd night. That's when he saw her mouth. Wide open. No teeth. Just blackness, pulsing like a living wound. Riku woke up drenched in sweat. His phone's clock read 2:18 a.m., 1 minute past the buzz. By the 10th night, Riku began logging everything. Time, date, intercom status, dream details. He wasn't trying to be brave. He was trying to make it rational, to frame it like a puzzle, to edit it like he did with work, cut it into sense, shape it into something that had rules. But the pattern didn't care about sense, only time. 2:17 a.m., always. On the 12th night, he tried something new. He spoke into the intercom mic. "Hello? Can you hear me?" Static. No reply. He tried again. "Is someone there?" The screen remained black. But he heard something. Not through the speaker, through the wall behind it. A whisper. Not clear, not loud, but intentional. He pressed his ear to the wall. The whisper stopped, but something inside the drywall scraped. He didn't sleep that night, and when he reviewed his recordings the next day, every clip from 2:17 to 2:19 a.m. was corrupted, pixelated beyond recovery. The files were renamed with fragments of words. See me.mov, she knows.mp4, not blind enough.mov. None of them played. The hallway outside his door grew colder. He could feel it every time he returned from a quick run to the konbini. Room 701 had a chill that defied insulation. Even with the heater on, the air felt wrong. Too dry, too still, as if the room itself had stopped exhaling. 2 nights later, the intercom turned on during the day. He was on a video call with a client when the low whine buzzed behind him. He paused, turned, expecting to see the usual glow, but it was darker this time. Too dark for daylight. He stood and approached. This time the monitor showed the hallway clearly. No one at the door, but in the corner of the screen, barely visible, a strand of hair, black, wet-looking, hanging into view like a drip of ink. He blinked. The camera cut out. By now, the 2:17 ritual was affecting him. His eyes were red-shot. His edits were falling behind. Clients messaged and received no reply. He stopped showering, stopped cooking. He only watched. Watched the clock, watched the screen, watched himself begin to disappear in reflections. He called the landlord, asked to break the lease. The voice on the other end was polite, then wary. "You're not saying you saw anything strange, are you?" the landlord asked quietly. Riku froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean, this isn't the first time someone's moved out early from 701. Silence. Riku asked, "What happened to the last tenant?" The landlord hesitated, then hung up. That night the intercom buzzed twice. Once at 2:17 a.m. and again at 2:34 a.m. Riku didn't answer either. But at 3 a.m., his phone lit up. No ringtone, no notification, just a video thumbnail. Doorbell 2134.mov. He hadn't recorded anything. He tapped the screen. It opened to a frame of the intercom feed. There, facing the camera, clear now, was the woman in black. Her head was still lowered, her hands folded over her lap, but her mouth had stopped moving. Her eyes, still hidden by shadow, looked up, straight at him. Then the screen began to distort. His own reflection appeared in the intercom monitor behind her, but he wasn't blinking, and neither was she. The feed cut out. The file vanished. In the silence that followed, he heard one thing, not through the intercom, not from the wall, not in his head, but in the room itself. A whisper, dry, soft, terrifying in its familiarity. It said, "You left me outside too." The door looked normal. That was the worst part. It didn't groan, It didn't bleed, it didn't move when no one was near. It just stood there, with its silver peephole and smooth beige paint, utterly silent, like it had nothing to hide. But Riku knew better now. He didn't trust silence anymore. After the second phantom video, he stopped pretending. This wasn't faulty wiring. This wasn't sleep deprivation. He wasn't seeing things because of stress or too much caffeine. He was being watched. And she, the woman in the black kimono, was waiting. He tested everything. He unplugged the intercom from the wall. It still buzzed. He covered the lens with black tape. The footage still showed her face. He even placed a mirror across from the intercom, facing it directly. At 2:17 a.m., the screen came alive again. And this time, in the mirror's reflection, he saw two women. One in the monitor, one standing just behind him. He turned, heart punching through his ribs. There was nothing there. But the mirror kept flickering, and her mouth kept moving. He called a technician, booked a service to replace the intercom unit entirely. When the man arrived, he stood at the entrance for a long time before stepping inside. His eyes scanned the corners, the ceiling, the speaker on the wall. "Old system," he muttered. "Can you remove it?" The technician hesitated. "You live here?" "Yes." "Alone?" Riku nodded. The man didn't smile. He looked at the intercom, then back at Riku. "There's something strange about these walls, this building. The wiring routes through places it shouldn't. You have an extra junction box, one that doesn't show up on the circuit map. What does that mean?" "It means," he paused, choosing his words, "it was installed after the building was finished, retrofitted into the same wall that was shared with the old room 703. Riku's skin crawled. "Room 703 doesn't exist anymore," the man added. Then he packed up his tools without touching a wire. "I'm sorry. I can't help you." He left without charging a yen. Riku didn't chase him. He sat on the floor with the door closed and the screen dark and the walls pressing in closer than they had before. He opened his laptop and began searching. Room 703 Ikebukuro. Death Apartment Tokyo. Woman in kimono intercom. Doorbell ghost urban legends. Hours passed. Threads scrolled. Most were vague, dead links. But eventually, he found a comment buried in a 10-year-old forum post. Room 703 was sealed in 2014 after a woman died at the threshold. She rang the bell for over 20 minutes before collapsing. They say she was trying to get her ex to let her in. He never answered. By the time anyone noticed, it was too late. Now they call it Room 701. Riku felt the blood drain from his hands. Sayaka. The name came to him like a whisper he didn't remember hearing. Was that her? That night, he made a decision. He would not check the intercom. He would not answer the buzzer. He would not open the door. He would treat her presence like one treats a curse in an old story. Never acknowledge, never speak, never invite. But rules are fragile things when you're the one being haunted. At 2:17 a.m., the intercom screen turned on by itself. No buzz, no warning, just light. He stayed in bed, back turned, pillow over his ears. But his phone lit up. A new notification from airdrop request from Sayaka.phone. Accept, decline. He sat up, stared. His Bluetooth was off. He declined. The screen went dark, and from the speaker in the wall, a voice began to hum. A song with no words, no tune he recognized. But it was filled with grief, so full of waiting that it nearly broke him. He put on headphones, turned up music, anything, white noise. He tried to drown her out. The next day, his laptop showed a new folder on the desktop. Recovered calls. Inside were dozens of files. No icons, just timestamps. All between 2:17 and 2:19 a.m. Each file was 0.00 MB. Each file was labeled "Open the door.wave." Open the door.wave. Open the door.wave. Open the door.wave. He deleted them. They reappeared. He smashed the laptop. They showed up on his phone. He stayed awake the next night, drank coffee until his hands shook, sat cross-legged in the center of the room, phone off, laptop unplugged, every reflective surface covered with towels. The room felt heavy, as if the air had substance, as if something was leaning against the walls, pressing inward. The clock struck 2:17. Nothing happened. No buzz, no hum. Just silence. Then, the door handle turned. Once. Twice. A slow rattle. Careful. Almost polite. Then the knock. 3 soft taps. Not demanding, not loud, just asking. Riku crawled into the corner of the room. He didn't cry, he didn't speak, but he shook so hard that the tatami creaked beneath him. The knocking stopped, but the intercom speaker clicked on, and her voice whispered, "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to come home." That was the first time he considered leaving, running. But he couldn't. Not yet. Not while the door was still closed. Not while the buzzer still worked. Because if he opened that door now, he knew what was waiting on the other side. Not a ghost, not an intruder, but a woman whose death had been ignored. A woman who had spent her final breath calling out to someone who never came. A woman who now waited for his voice, the way she had once waited for another man's. Riku wasn't sure what was worse, that she thought he was someone else, or maybe he wasn't so different. He placed a sticky note on the intercom that night. Do not open, do not listen, do not acknowledge her. It didn't help. At 2:17 a.m., the note peeled off by itself. It began with the mirror in the bathroom. Just a flicker at first, a slight lag when he brushed his teeth. He'd raise the toothbrush to his mouth, and for a breath of a second, the reflection didn't follow. He blinked, rubbed his eyes. He blamed sleep, blamed stress, blamed caffeine, anything but what it felt like. That something else was inside the glass, and it was slower than him. Riku taped over the bathroom mirror. That made it easier. But mirrors weren't the only things that reflected anymore. His laptop screen, his phone, the polished faucet, even the black intercom monitor when it was turned off. He saw himself in all of them, except he wasn't always alone. Sometimes, in the corner of the frame, there was movement. A second shadow. A second pair of hands, too thin, too pale, not his. On the 16th night, he dared to speak again. He sat before the intercom. The tape had peeled off, again, and he was too tired to fight it. His voice was raw. "Who are you?" Static. He leaned closer. "What do you want?" No answer. Then, the screen turned on by itself. It showed him. Just him, sitting on the floor, watching himself watch the screen. But the delay was obvious now. 3 seconds, maybe 4. He waved his hand, and the image waved after him, like it needed time to decide. He left the apartment the next morning for the first time in days. He needed air. Outside, Ikebukuro was loud, alive, mercifully indifferent. Crowds, horns, the scent of takoyaki drifting through alleys. Noise, humanity, chaos. He walked until he couldn't feel his legs. No plan, just escape. At a bookstore cafe, he opened his laptop, hoping to ground himself in something real. But even there, in the matte black of the screen, he caught it. His own face, blinking, out of sync. He slammed the lid shut. An old woman across the room glanced up. She stared for a moment too long, then looked away, but not before mouthing something under her breath. He was sure it was the word, Sayaka. Back at the apartment, he removed every mirror. He deleted his camera apps, turned off his phone, draped towels over his monitors. Still, she found ways to look at him. Reflected in the microwave door, in the dark of his tea, in his own pupil when he looked too long. And always her hair was the first thing he saw, hanging, motionless, as if she existed in a world with no wind, no breath, no time. Then came the day he looked into the intercom screen and saw not himself, not her, but nothing. An empty room. The image should have been real time. It should have shown him standing there, but it didn't. He waved his hand, jumped, moved side to side. Still, the screen remained empty. And then, suddenly, his image appeared. But he was sitting, cross-legged, wearing different clothes, bleeding from one nostril, smiling. He ripped the plug from the wall. The screen went dark. He turned toward the room. The layout was the same. The shadows were the same. But now he wasn't sure if this was still his room or if he had somehow stepped into the image. That night, the whispers returned. Not from the intercom, not from the speaker, but from the glass of the balcony door. Do you know how it feels to be erased? He turned away, closed the curtain, but the whisper came again, closer now, inside the room. Every day, I forget a little more of my face. Will you forget yours too? The next morning, he looked in the mirror again, the one he hadn't smashed yet. And for a second, he saw her, behind him, not looking at him, looking through him, as if she was the one standing still. He blinked, and she was gone. But when he looked again, his reflection was no longer matching him. It blinked before he did. It tilted its head when he stayed still, and then it smiled. He didn't. Riku fell back, knocked over the sink, cut himself. He ran out of the bathroom and slammed the door shut, breathing in gasps like he was drowning in his own air. His hand trembled as he looked at the blood. But in the droplet running down his palm, he saw a face. For a second, her face, not screaming, just watching. That night, he covered every reflective surface with salt, a trick he read on a forum deep in the horror corners of the internet, something about disrupting the veil, confusing spirits. He sprinkled rice at the door, lit incense at the window. He recited a mantra he didn't understand, and he told himself he would be okay. But at 2:17 a.m., the screen turned on again. This time, there was no one on the other side, just text, white, faint, flickering like candlelight. Your face fits better than his. The file appeared at 3:09 a.m. Riku hadn't touched his laptop. He hadn't opened a browser. He hadn't checked a drive. And yet, there it was. A single video on the desktop. No folder, no trace of a download, just a corrupted-looking thumbnail with a name that made his heart stumble. you_forgot_my_face.mov. He stared at it for a long time. Didn't click, didn't move. He knew better. But curiosity isn't a choice when your fear starts to look like guilt. He double-clicked. The video opened in full screen. At first, it was black. Then grain, static, VHS-level noise, even though he'd never used a tape in his life. The timestamp in the corner read 02:17:00. The footage showed his hallway, recorded from the intercom camera. There she was, Sayaka, her long black kimono dragging against the concrete, her body swaying slightly as if she stood in heavy wind, though the footage was deathly still. She didn't move toward the camera, she didn't ring the bell. She just stood there, head bowed, lips twitching, saying something over and over that made no sound. Then something changed. The timestamp began to count backward. 02:16:59, 02:16:58. The video reversed itself. Sayaka began walking backward, back into the hallway's shadows. The grain intensified. Audio distortion crackled in the speakers. A low-frequency hum vibrated through his desk. And then suddenly, the hallway was empty. But the video kept playing. Now the camera feed showed inside room 701, from a corner angle, like someone had mounted a second camera in his ceiling. The video showed himself, sitting in front of the laptop, watching the video, watching this moment. He reached for the trackpad on screen. At the exact moment, Riku reached for his own. He froze. The image froze. And then, the Riku inside the video turned his head, slowly, toward the camera, toward him, and whispered, "I remember you." The video cut to black. Riku slammed the laptop shut, threw it across the room. It didn't break. It just landed softly, too softly, as if the floor was no longer part of reality. He turned on the lights, but the room looked different, smaller, walls closer. The intercom glowed in the corner, even though he'd ripped its cable from the wall days ago. He approached it, hands trembling. The screen displayed a paused frame, a still image of his own face, but younger, cleaner, happier. He didn't remember being that version of himself, but somehow the man in the image looked disappointed. He tried to delete the video, plugged the laptop in, powered it back up, but the file was gone. In its place, a new folder, Sayaka. Inside, dozens of files, all corrupted. No thumbnails, but the file names were fragments of sentences. I_stood there.mov. I_waited.mov. He_never_answered.mov. You_never_answered.mov. Your_voice_is_close enough.mp4. He backed away, shut the lid again, turned off every breaker in the room. Silence for a moment. Then, the laptop turned itself back on. No boot chime, no startup screen, just white text on a black background. Don't erase me. Riku screamed and slammed it shut a second time. This time he smashed it with his fist, hard. The screen spiderwebbed with cracks. He unplugged it, removed the battery, smashed that too. Silence. He curled up on the floor, breath shallow. For the first time since it began, he cried. Not out of fear, but out of guilt. Because deep inside, something cruel stirred in him. He had seen her face now, and even still, he wanted to forget it. The next morning, when he opened the closet, he found something waiting inside. Not a figure, not a ghost, just an old camcorder, covered in dust, labeled in faded marker, 703 Intercom feed, final days. He hadn't placed it there. It hadn't been there before. It was warm to the touch, like it had been used recently. He took it out, connected it to his monitor. There was only one file inside, titled you_forgot_my_face.mov. But this time, it was different. The footage showed a younger man, late 20s, pale, shaky, breathing heavily as he sat in room 703. The layout was exactly the same as Riku's apartment. Same furniture, same tatami, same curtains. But the man looked terrified. He was crying, muttering to himself. I don't think you saw her face when you rented. The concierge said she's gone, but she keeps coming back. Every night. I blocked the intercom. I told her to go away. He stood up, walked to the camera, and whispered, If you're watching this, don't open the door. Don't let her know you hear her. A pause. She died out there, calling for someone who was too much of a coward to answer. That was me. And now she wants a new name. He swallowed. She wants mine. The screen went black. Then, a still frame of the intercom feed. Sayaka. Her face clear now. No longer blurred, no longer a shadow. Just grief. Deep, raw, ancient. She wasn't angry. She wasn't violent. She was forgotten. And that, somehow, was worse. Riku didn't sleep that night. He didn't edit. He didn't eat. He just sat in the dark with the camcorder on the floor, whispering the same words over and over. I see you. I see you. I see you. But he wasn't sure if he meant her or himself, because lately he was beginning to forget his own face. The city didn't know her name anymore. Not the neighbors, not the landlord, not even the building's own records. But she had lived here once, and died here, and the doorbell had been the last thing she ever touched. Riku didn't want to believe in ghosts, but ghosts don't wait for belief. They just wait. He started with the obvious. The building's online registry showed no room 703. Not anymore. The numbers jumped from 702 to 704, but the gap was visible. On the 7th floor, one section of hallway had a strange indentation, a seam in the wall that didn't match the rest of the layout, like a door had been sealed up long ago. He pressed his hand to it. It was colder than the others. He asked the landlord again, cornered him at the mailboxes. Who lived in room 703 before it was renumbered? The man's expression didn't change. That room was condemned after water damage. Water doesn't ring the intercom every night. The landlord flinched just for a second. You should be careful what you ask about. This city doesn't like to remember things that don't pay rent. And with that, he turned and walked away. So Riku searched elsewhere, online, buried in decade-old forums, anonymous blogs, conspiracy sites, archive captures. He dug past missing person cases, past articles about suicides near train lines, past stories of women who vanished into narrow alleys between convenience stores and never came out. And then he found her. A name. A photo. Sayaka Minobe, age 28, died in 2014. Cause of death: exposure and blood loss. Found collapsed outside an apartment. Officials believed she rang the doorbell for 26 minutes before falling unconscious. She had been trying to see her ex-fiancé. He never answered. When they questioned him, he claimed he had been asleep, but neighbors reported hearing her crying, begging. Her last words, recorded faintly by a neighbor's hallway camera, were, "I don't need forgiveness, I just need a face to look at." Riku leaned back in his chair, heart hollow. He looked at her photo. Her eyes weren't eerie. They were kind. Not the kind you associate with onryō, those vengeful spirits of Japanese legend. But it didn't matter what she was, only what she had become. A presence, a wound that had been sealed behind drywall, only to rot in the dark and spill out through wires and reflections. He walked back to the hallway outside his room, to the seam in the wall where 703 had once been. And there, for the first time, he noticed something. A faint outline, a rectangle of adhesive residue from something long removed. A nameplate, 4 characters, barely visible now, but legible if you knew what to look for. Minobe Sayaka, or Sayaka Minobe. She had lived here, not just near him, in the same space, his room, his kitchen, his intercom. She had stood here, slept here, laughed here, cried here. She had died just outside this very door. He pressed his hand to the center of the panel, closed his eyes, and felt not cold, not static, but grief. Like the wall was trying to say something, or remember something. That night, he didn't sleep. He couldn't. The lights flickered too often. The intercom clicked on and off, even unplugged. At 2:17 a.m., it activated again, but this time it didn't buzz. It rang, a soft, old-fashioned chime that he had never heard before, gentle, nostalgic. And on the screen, Sayaka, not swaying, not glitching, not whispering, just standing, still, patient, waiting. And when he didn't move, she smiled. It was subtle, but real. Her lips curved faintly. Her head tilted slightly, as if she had finally seen something she had waited years to see. And then, the screen cut. He didn't breathe for a full minute after that. The next day, a letter arrived in his mailbox. No return address, no stamp, no handwriting. Just a blank envelope with one thing inside. A polycopy of a police report. Death at Ikebukuro Building D, Unit 703. Name, Sayaka Minobe. Scrawled at the bottom in red marker, she was denied a goodbye. Now she lives in the sound. Riku tore the paper in half. It didn't help. He threw it away. The next morning, it was on his pillow again. Uncreased, untorn. Later that week, he tried recording the intercom again. He set up his phone, pointed it at the screen, and waited. At 2:17, the video began as usual. Sayaka, still, close, lips moving. But this time, as he reviewed the footage, something strange happened. The words became visible, not audio, not subtitles, text, appearing on screen, one line at a time. I don't want to scare you. I only want to be remembered. He wouldn't see me. Will you? Then a pause, and one final line. You blink the same way he did. Riku deleted the video, but the file duplicated itself 3 times, each with a different name. He left the light on. .mov. I waited too long. .mov. You have his voice. .mov. He stopped trying to delete them after that. They would come back anyway. He began talking to her. Not at first, but slowly, quietly, just in whispers, in case she really was listening. I'm sorry, he said once. You didn't deserve to be left alone. The intercom didn't respond, but the next morning, the screen was covered in handprints. Dozens, small, pale, pressed from inside the screen, like she had been trying to get out, or to hold his face. That night, his phone buzzed. No caller ID, just a voicemail. When he played it back, he heard a familiar voice, his own, whispering. She was the girl at the door, and now you are.
Tokyo is full of ghosts, but most of them don't wear white. They're not crawling through your walls or screaming from your ceiling. No, most of them are hidden in spreadsheets, filed under property management, erased by renovation, renumbered, like room 703, now labeled 701, as if a name change could clean blood from the concrete. Riku stood in front of the ward office, staring up at its dull gray windows. Inside were records, permits, paper trails for everything that had ever lived or died in this district. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe confirmation. Maybe forgiveness. Or maybe just something that told him he wasn't losing his mind. It took 3 different lines and a forged utility bill, but he finally found it. Buried in the archives of residential restructuring. Unit 703, Building D, removed from public listing due to incident in 2014. consolidated into adjacent Unit 701 as of April 2015. No mention of a name, no mention of Sayaka. Just the word, incident. As if her life had been a typo. He took a photo of the record. The clerk gave him a look. "Why do you want that?" "I live there now." Her expression shifted, subtle, tense. Then, with forced politeness, she said, "Buildings don't hold on to the past. They're just concrete." He almost laughed. Concrete is exactly what holds memory. It absorbs every echo, every scream, every unanswered knock, and it never forgets. That night, he dreamed of walls, endless walls, tiled and white and windowless like a hospital. He walked them barefoot, hallway after hallway, turning corner after corner until he reached a single door with no number. He knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. The door opened, and there she was, Sayaka. Her face still hidden beneath her hair, her funeral kimono rustling without wind. But this time, she didn't speak. She just stepped aside, letting him see what was behind her. A room that looked exactly like his. Exactly. But the bed was made, the dishes were clean, and the intercom, it was dripping. Thick, black water falling from the speaker. Each drop hitting the floor with the weight of a memory. He looked down, and on the floor beneath the puddle were dozens of nameplates, room numbers, all different, all crossed out, except one, 703. And beneath that, scrawled in ink that never dried, "Don't rename the grave." He woke gasping. The intercom was glowing, but the screen didn't show the hallway. It showed a cemetery, rows of unmarked stone slabs, shadows moving between them. Then the screen flickered once, twice, and cut to black. He opened his laptop, searched again, this time for the renumbering of haunted apartments in Tokyo. The stories were endless. One building in Shibuya had removed an entire floor after a suicide cluster. Another in Setagaya had quietly relabeled the unit after a resident burned to death inside. Each time, the solution was the same. Change the number, forget the name, sell it again. Riku returned to the hallway that night, stood in front of the seam in the wall where 703 used to be, and he whispered, "I know you were here." The wall groaned softly, like a floorboard creaking beneath old weight. Then, from the intercom behind him, her voice, soft and direct. "They called me an incident. You called me a person." The lights in the hallway flickered. For a second, he saw the number on his door change. 701 became 703. Then, flickered back. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and found that every file on his computer had been renamed. Even his work, even his footage. Everything now read, Sayaka_1.move. Sayaka_2.move. Sayaka_cut_final_final.move. Sayaka_voice_mix.wav. He searched for Riku. Nothing came up. He searched his own name in the system. The machine returned, "No matching user found." He tried to log in to his video editing platform. Password incorrect. Recovery email unrecognized. Security image, a photo of Sayaka's face. When he blinked, it was his own again, but older, tired, flickering. He spoke out loud to no one. "I won't rename you." The room buzzed. For a moment, it felt like the walls exhaled, and then the intercom screen lit up. This time, instead of Sayaka's face, there was his apartment door. Closed, still. He stared. Then the door handle began to turn. From the inside. He ran to the door and yanked it open. Nothing. No one. The hallway was quiet, but the lights flickered, and once again, for just a second, the number 703 appeared on the door. And this time, it didn't go away. In Japanese folklore, there's a rule whispered by monks and mortuary workers alike, a rule passed down quietly, never written in law, never said aloud at funerals, but understood by anyone who has ever watched a soul refuse to rest. To deny a spirit's presence is to feed its hunger. It's not anger that binds the dead. It's ignorance. The moment you pretend they weren't real, that they weren't loved, or known, or missed, they become vengeful. Not out of cruelty, but out of loss. And loss, when ignored, becomes a kind of violence. Riku read the old text at 3:41 a.m., a scanned passage from a 17th century Shingon monk's writings, buried in a forum dedicated to supernatural theology. The term was clear: onryō, a spirit born not from hate, but from betrayal, not from death, but from being forgotten. And the only way to release it was to recognize it, to speak its name, to meet its gaze, to acknowledge its pain. But what happens when the world renames your grave? When your face disappears from every file? When no one answers the door? You become static, trapped in screens, buzzing in wires, glitching through reflections, begging the living to remember you so you can finally forget yourself. Riku sat in the center of his room, laptop glowing with corrupted files. The intercom, though long since unplugged, clicked softly, waiting. He lit the last of the incense he had bought from the corner shrine. It smelled like dust and pine. In his hand, he held the only picture of Sayaka he could still find. It was blurry, a scan of an old ID, but it was enough. He whispered, "Sayaka Minobe, I see you." The intercom buzzed, but not the mechanical tone he'd come to fear. This one was softer, almost startled, like it hadn't expected to be called by name. He walked to it slowly, pressed the screen. Sayaka was there, but she looked different. Not clearer, but closer to real. Her hair no longer drifted unnaturally. Her lips no longer moved without sound. She just stood, still, waiting. Riku spoke again. "I'm sorry for what happened, for what no one did, for the door that stayed shut." The screen flickered. Her eyes rose. He had never seen them until now. They were empty in the way that only deep, soul-carved sorrow can be. But she was listening. And then she did something new. She bowed, deep, slow, formal.
like a mourner at a grave. Then she turned and began to walk away from the camera, step by step, fading into the hallway until the screen returned to static. Riku collapsed to the floor in tears, not from fear, but from release, because for the first time in weeks, the air didn't feel thick, the room didn't feel hungry, and the silence didn't feel personal. But ghosts don't leave in a single night, especially the kind that were never buried right. The next morning, he left his apartment, walked until he found a shrine small enough to still believe in spirits. An old man sat near the incense bowls, nodding in rhythm with the cicadas. Riku approached him. "Do you believe in onryō?" The man didn't blink. "I believe in regret." "And can regret be released?" The old man looked up at him. "If it's acknowledged, yes. If not, it becomes a curse." Riku told him the story. Not everything, just enough. The intercom, the midnight buzz, the woman in the kimono, the name that kept returning like an error in the system. The man listened, and when Riku finished, he handed him a small paper charm, ink drawn by hand, a single kanji, mi, meaning see. "Place it above your door, so she knows someone still does." Riku did. He pinned the charm just above the pee-hole, and that night, for the first time, there was no buzz at 2:17 a.m., no static, no image, only silence and sleep. But the relief didn't last, because peace in haunted places always comes with a cost. At 3:46 a.m., his phone rang. The contact read, "Sayaka." The ringtone wasn't one he had set. It was the soft chime of his old intercom bell. He answered. Static. Then his own voice. "You saw her, but she saw you too, and now you're part of the feed." The call dropped. He stared at the phone. It felt heavier now, colder, as if it remembered a world before smartphones, before cloud backups, before forgotten ghosts lived inside machines. He turned toward the intercom, heart trembling. It was dark, dead, but on the wall beside it, written in condensation, 6 words: "Don't forget what she became."
Riku bought the best smart doorbell he could find. Infrared night vision, motion detection, 1080p clarity, cloud backups, real-time alerts. He installed it with shaking hands, screwing it into the concrete wall just above the old intercom. The landlord never asked, the hallway never objected, and the intercom, though dark, seemed to flicker faintly, as if watching the replacement. That night, Riku sat with his phone on the desk, connected to the app, live feed running. Nothing. For hours, nothing. But he didn't trust nothing anymore, because nothing now had a presence, and silence had become a shape. At 2:16 a.m., the app glitched. Not a notification, not motion, just a flicker of the time bar. For 3 seconds, the feed cut out, then came back. He replayed the footage. Nothing. Then played it again, frame by frame, and at exactly 2:17:03, a frame stuttered. A single flicker,
One still image that shouldn't exist. A woman, facing the door, her head tilted upward, as if smelling the camera. Hair across her face, kimono unmoving in the stale hallway air. Riku paused it, zoomed in. The quality blurred, but her lips were visible, closed, not moving, just pressed tightly together like she was waiting for him to speak first. He reached toward the screen, and before his finger touched it, the image vanished, replaced with the message, "No footage available between 2:16 and 2:19 a.m." He checked the cloud backup. Same result. He dug through the local cache on the app. Corrupted. The folder was renamed /Sayaka/live feed. Every file was 0 KB, but every thumbnail showed a still frame of the hallway, and in each one, her silhouette moved a little closer to the door. The camera began to malfunction the next day. Only at night, only during those same 3 minutes, and only when he tried to watch in real time. He'd be staring at the live feed, then static, then a frame that showed his own door wide open, even though he was sure it was shut, even though he never heard the latch click. He tested it, set a second phone outside to record the door itself, while he stayed inside watching the camera feed. At 2:17 a.m., he saw it again. Door open, dark hallway beyond. Then, Sayaka, walking in, not glitching, not ghost-like, just entering. Soft, quiet, careful, as if she'd been invited this time. He screamed, ran to the door, but it was locked, shut, still. Nothing on the outside phone, nothing on the floor, nothing in the air. And yet, the room felt different, like it had widened, like it had made space for something that was no longer outside. The camera app no longer obeyed him. It started opening on its own. Notifications from Sayaka folders flooded his phone. Some were images, but the timestamps were wrong. Future times, 2:17 a.m. the next day, 2:17 the next week, even dates months away. In each image, his hallway, the door slightly more open, Sayaka's figure increasingly not alone. In the last image, labeled doorfinal.jpg, it wasn't Sayaka standing at the door. It was him, from behind, hand on the handle, and behind him, her hand reaching toward his shoulder. Riku deleted the app, reset the phone, bought a new device, but the moment he logged in, the files came back, not downloaded, not restored, just there, already waiting, like they never left. He tried installing a second camera inside the apartment, facing the intercom. A private feed, local only, just for peace of mind. That night, at 2:17, the feed didn't cut out, but it didn't show Sayaka. It showed Riku, sitting on the floor, alone, but different, staring at the camera, unblinking, and smiling faintly, like he knew something the real Riku didn't. The real Riku backed away, looked around his apartment. Same shadows, same walls, same dead intercom. But something felt flipped, like he was the one on camera now, and the other him was doing the watching. The next morning, the indoor camera was missing, gone without trace. In its place, a sticky note taped to the wall. One sentence: "You can't record what belongs to the unseen." He went to a repair shop, asked them to wipe every device. The technician took his phone and looked puzzled. He said, "There's no video files on here."
Riku froze. "But I saw them." The man shook his head. "No storage being used, no image data, not even cache. It's like this phone was never turned on." Riku left, without saying a word. That night, he wrote Sayaka's name on paper, folded it, placed it under the smart doorbell, a ritual of offering, not for peace, but for boundaries. He whispered, "I see you, but you can't see me anymore." At 2:17 a.m., the doorbell rang, not buzzed, rang, just like before. But the screen stayed dark. The app didn't open. No files appeared. And for the first time in days, he felt control. Until 2:19 a.m., when every light in the apartment flickered, his laptop powered on, even unplugged, and a video began to play by itself. Sayaka's face, not outside, inside, sitting at his desk, looking into the webcam, and whispering, "This is how it starts. You saw me. Now the camera sees for me."
Riku didn't remember falling asleep, but he woke up to a camera lens pointed at his face, his own phone, recording. He had left it on the kitchen counter the night before. Now it was in his hand, recording in selfie mode, 12 minutes, ongoing. He stopped it with trembling fingers, saved the file, watched the playback. The video began in darkness. Then, the phone was lifted, carried, not by him. The angle was wrong, too smooth, as if the camera moved of its own will. Then the image came into focus. Riku, sleeping on the floor, tossing slightly, muttering something unintelligible, and then he stopped moving. His head turned, and his eyes opened, staring directly into the lens. Except he never remembered doing it, and the him in the video, he was smiling. He deleted the file. It reappeared, renamed waking.mov. He tried filming himself again, consciously this time, set up his phone across the room, hit record, stared at it, spoke into it, watched himself in real time. No flicker, no glitch. Then, right before he ended the video, his reflection in the screen winked. He hadn't. It was becoming clearer. She was inside the camera now, not just showing up in footage, using it, possessing it, climbing through every lens, every pixel, every sensor. At 2:17 a.m., the smart doorbell went off, but the hallway feed didn't show Sayaka. It showed himself, standing outside the apartment door, knocking, staring into the camera, lips moving with no sound, his own face, but wrong, too pale, too wide-eyed, too still. He opened the door in real life, nothing there, checked the hallway, empty, closed it, turned back to the feed. The video was still playing, but now Sayaka stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder, one hand raised to the camera, a gesture of warning or of claiming. He turned off every device in the room, pulled out plugs, removed batteries, tore tape over screens. But it didn't matter. The reflection still showed her, in blank monitors, in powered-off screens, in his own eyes when he passed the bathroom mirror. The next day, his email account sent itself a message. Subject, "I live in light." No body text, just an attachment, a photo of his bedroom, taken from a high corner, like a surveillance angle. He checked every wall. No hidden cams, no devices. Still, the image was perfect.
time-stamped 2:17 a.m. Sayaka wasn't in the photo, but her shadow was, on the floor beside him, long, thin, reaching toward his back. He visited a tech shop, bought a brand new camera, not connected to Wi-Fi, not smart, just a point-and-shoot digital. He placed it on the nightstand, facing the room. At 2:17 a.m., he watched from the corner. No noise, no buzz, no movement, just stillness. Then, at 2:18, the camera clicked. Once, twice, 10 times, all by itself. Rapid, mechanical, empty shutter clicks. When he reviewed the SD card, only one image had saved. Sayaka, sitting on his bed, head tilted, mouth slightly open, as if mid-sentence, and on the bedsheet beside her, written in static, like digital artifacting, "Do you understand now?" He threw the camera off the balcony. It landed 3 floors down with a plastic crack, but the photo was already on his phone. He hadn't transferred it. It was there anyway, set as his wallpaper. She wasn't waiting at the door anymore. She was inside the apartment, inside the devices, inside him. The next morning, he found a folder on his desktop, /mirror feed. Inside, cam1il.mov, cam2ir.mov, mirrorloop.mov. The videos were low-res, almost like they were recorded from inside a human body. The first showed blinks, the second a room, upside down. The third was a loop, himself sitting still, Sayaka slowly emerging from his reflection, touching his face and whispering, "You have my face now." He screamed, ran to the mirror, tore it off the wall, and smashed it against the floor. But when he looked down, the broken pieces still reflected him. Only him. But not him. The smile was too soft, the eyes too empty, the face no longer afraid. That night, he dreamed of cameras, dozens of them, falling from the ceiling like rain, crashing to the floor, each one showing a different version of his room. In one, he was asleep. In another, he was watching himself sleep. In a third, Sayaka was sitting at his desk, typing. Her face was blank, expressionless. Her fingers typed one word over and over, "See." When he woke, there was a camera in his lap, still recording. She wasn't just appearing anymore. She was editing, stitching together timelines, creating new cuts, rewriting moments as if they were footage. And the more he tried to resist, the more real she became. At 2:17 a.m., his phone rang. Again. Caller ID, Sayaka. He answered, but it wasn't her voice. It was his, breathing and whispering, "Don't blink. She's inside the lens now, and she only moves when you're not watching." Then silence. Then the camera flash on his phone blinked 3 times. There's an old rule in Japanese funerary rites, not written in ink, not taught in temples, only whispered. Even the unseen must be given passage. Because when a soul is left unhonored, when death is unmarked, unspoken, unwept, the spirit doesn't move on. It folds into the walls, into wires, into reflections, into grief too quiet to echo, but too loud to forget. Riku had done everything wrong. He had seen her, he had spoken to her, but he had never performed the rite.
Because in his world, rituals were gone. Prayers were apps. Altars were algorithmic. And now Sayaka was inside everything. He searched for help, but you can't Google a ghost. Not the real ones. Not the ones who have entered your image cache and corrupted your sense of time. He dug into online forums, digital shrines, Shinto priest blogs so old they barely loaded, and found one thing, one name. Kanonji Shrine, Nakano Ward. A tiny, nearly forgotten site known for its Shiryo Tachiage, rituals of spiritual lifting. A place to help the wandering dead be seen so they could finally leave. The shrine was hidden behind a cluster of low-rise buildings, its wooden gate leaning with age. A crooked stone path led to a single bell and a weather-worn offering box. The priest was older than the wood, blind in one eye. He listened to Riku without interrupting, then asked one question. Did she die alone? Yes, he whispered, at the door. The priest nodded slowly, then said the words that cracked something open in Riku's chest. She's still knocking. The ritual would require 3 things. The name of the spirit, spoken clearly, repeated 7 times, so she remembers who she was. A mirror facing a closed door. The spirit must see herself trying to pass to realize she has not yet crossed. A token of forgiveness, not to erase what happened, but to witness it. Because the dead, the priest said, don't want revenge. They want to be acknowledged. What they cannot accept is being overwritten. Riku left with a slip of paper, handwritten sutra, charcoal characters that shimmered strangely in the light. The priest warned him, if you begin the rite, you must complete it. Otherwise, she won't be the only one who's forgotten who she is. That night, Riku prepared the room. He placed the mirror by the door, faced it inward, placed the photo of Sayaka beside it, the only image still surviving the digital corruption. A candle, a bowl of salt, a bell. He sat cross-legged and spoke. Sayaka Minobe, I see you. Again. Sayaka Minobe, I see you. 7 times. And as he spoke, the room breathed. Not shook, not glitched, just breathed. The air changed. He felt her presence, not watching him, but watching herself. In the mirror. For the first time since this began, she looked lost. Not vengeful, not haunting, just standing in front of the mirror, kimono still, head tilted. A girl trying to understand why the reflection no longer moves. Riku took a deep breath, placed the token at the base of the mirror, a piece of the broken intercom panel, the one she used in her final moments, the one no one answered. It was cracked, stained, but it had heard her voice, and now it would carry it. The candle flickered, the mirror fogged, and from behind the door, a knock. Once, soft. Then, the intercom glowed, even though it had no power source. Sayaka's image appeared,
But it was no longer a live feed. It was memory. She stood in the hallway, rain in her hair, eyes swollen from crying, hands folded waiting. Not a ghost, a woman still alive in that moment, still hoping someone would open the door. Riku wept. He whispered, "I'm sorry no one answered. I'm sorry you were forgotten, but I won't let you disappear." The screen flickered. Sayaka blinked, then bowed one final time, and the intercom powered down. He stared at the mirror, expecting something dramatic, a sound, a scream, a shadow torn from the wall. But instead, Sayaka smiled, faint, quiet, like a face remembered from a dream, and she faded. Not shattered, not erased, just gone. Riku sat alone in the quiet. No buzz, no glitch, no reflection out of sync. Only the sound of the candle burning down, and the feeling of space returning to the room, like something that didn't belong had finally stepped outside. But as he reached for the bell to complete the rite, his phone vibrated. New message, no sender, just one word. Almost. And attached a video file. Reflection.mp4. He pressed play. It showed the mirror from earlier that night. But now, the Sayaka in the reflection, she wasn't facing herself anymore. She was facing him, and behind her, another shadow. One Riku had never seen before, but it looked familiar, too familiar. His shape, his posture, but not his eyes. Not anymore. It began with the stain. A small rust-colored drip just below the intercom panel. At first, Riku thought it was old wiring fluid, or condensation, or something else he could ignore. But by morning, the stain had grown, dark red, thicker, dripping down the wall like blood. He touched it, sticky, warm, and when he pulled his hand away, his skin tingled, not from pain, but from recognition, as if the intercom had remembered him. He grabbed a towel, tried to wipe it clean, but the mark bled through the fabric, staining his fingertips. The towel hissed softly in his hand, like it didn't want to be used. He dropped it, stepped back, and stared at the wall. The intercom turned on by itself. Screen cracked, flickering, and on it, not Sayaka, but him, sitting on the floor, except this version of Riku had no eyes, just smooth skin where they should be, mouth slightly open, whispering something that made no sound. He shut it off, but it turned back on. He unplugged the power, but it kept buzzing. He ripped it from the wall, and behind it, more blood, or something pretending to be. Thick, dark, pulsing from the wires like veins. It smelled like copper and rot, like the memory of a scream trapped in metal. He stumbled back, fell. His head hit the tatami. The light above flickered, and when he looked up, he saw her, Sayaka, on the ceiling, not standing, not floating, growing. Her hair was stretching outward like vines, threading across the ceiling, crawling down the walls, black strands weaving into the sockets, the light fixtures, the camera lenses. She had become part of the apartment, a living network of grief and circuitry. He crawled to the corner of the room, gasping. The walls were pulsing, like lungs breathing. Each time he exhaled, the floor seemed to inhale, and from inside the broken intercom box, a soft, wet sound, like something was being born. He grabbed his phone. No signal. Every app was gone, replaced with folders labeled "My Eyes," "My Mouth," "My Room," "You Are Me." Inside each folder, only black images. But when he topped them, they moved. Not videos, living reflections, mimicking his breathing, smiling when he didn't, blinking when he didn't. He screamed, ran to the bathroom, turned on the faucet to splash water on his face, and saw the mirror was gone. Not shattered, not covered, just missing. A blank space where it once was, like it had never existed. The faucet turned red. He jerked back, looked down, and realized the water wasn't water. It was dripping from the ceiling, from the wires, from the intercom. He turned to leave. The door wouldn't open. The chain lock he never used was engaged by something on the inside. And the voice came then, not through the intercom, not through the mirror, from the walls. Sayaka's voice, but deeper, slower, like it was echoing from every surface. You spoke my name. You gave me form, and I now give it back. The light bulbs burst. Glass rained down like sharp rain, and in each shattered piece, his reflection was smiling. But it wasn't him anymore. The bleeding had spread, down the wall, across the floor, over his work desk, his chair, his phone. Even the air felt heavy, coated in memory of something ancient, forgotten, rotting. He crawled toward the door, pulled the chain. It wouldn't budge. It had fused to the wall. Metal turned to bone. He was trapped, not by locks, but by recognition. He had finished the ritual, but not the removal. He had seen her, but now she had seen all of him. The intercom sparked, its voice box hissed, and a new sound emerged, something he hadn't heard before. Footsteps on tatami, coming from inside the screen. And then, his own voice, breathy, distant, whispering from within. She's not haunting me anymore. I'm haunting her. The walls cracked, tiny fractures like veins, and through them, shadows began to bleed, shapes, faces, other versions of him, other tenants, other stories, all overlapping, all forgotten. Room 701 had never been a room. It had always been a vessel for all the stories that ended without goodbye, for every knock unanswered, for every voice denied. And now, he was just another echo in the walls,
Another name in the circuit. Another drop in the Intercom's blood.
Riku packed his bags in silence. No music, no intercom buzz, no flickering screens. The bleeding had stopped. The walls had gone still. It felt like calm, but he had learned by now. Stillness can be camouflage. The mirror was still missing. The intercom was fused shut like melted plastic. His phone refused to power on. No time notifications, no calendar. Just a black screen that occasionally glowed faintly, as if something inside was breathing. He didn't say goodbye. There was no one to say it to. The landlord hadn't returned his messages. The neighbors hadn't answered their doors. It was as if the entire building had grown hollow, or worse, was waiting. He wheeled his suitcase to the elevator, pressed the button. The light above flickered to life. The doors opened with a slow, almost grudging creak. He stepped in, turned around, pressed 1. The doors slid closed, the lights dimmed, and the descent began. The floor numbers ticked down. 7, 6, then stopped. No 5, no motion. Just the hum of electricity stretching too long. He waited, pressed the button again. Nothing. Pressed the emergency call. Silence. Pressed every button at once. Still, nothing. The hum grew louder. The lights flickered. And then, from the mirrored ceiling above, he saw it. 2 versions of himself, standing in the same spot, same clothes, same posture. But only one was blinking. Only one looked afraid. The other stared upward, expression blank, head tilted slightly like Sayaka used to do. And then it smiled. He looked down. There was only one of him, but the reflection had become someone else. His shape, her presence, merged. Not male, not female, just haunted. The elevator groaned, then shuddered violently. The lights cut out. Total darkness, total stillness. Then a voice from the intercom speaker in the corner. Going down. The lights snapped back on, but something was wrong. The floor indicator now showed B1. Basement? There was no basement, not in this building. He hadn't pressed that. But the elevator was moving now, downward, beyond the lobby, beyond maps, beyond reason. The walls began to stretch, or maybe shrink. He couldn't tell anymore. His suitcase began to rattle, and from the speaker, static. Then, footsteps. Then, his own voice. You tried to leave, but we're past leaving now. He slammed the emergency stop. Nothing. He screamed, pounded on the doors. His voice sounded dull, like it was underwater. And from the mirrored ceiling, the reflection now showed 2 people. Him and Sayaka. Back to back, merging, fading into one another like old tape. The floor display flickered again. Not numbers now. Words. Memory. Regret. Recognition. Erasure. Then, home. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. But it wasn't the lobby.
It wasn't any floor he remembered, just a hallway, dimly lit, with dozens of doors, each numbered 701, endless, identical, some cracked open, some bleeding from the hinges, some pulsing softly like a sleeping lung. He stepped out. The doors closed behind him. No sound, no welcome, just the feeling of being expected. He walked, past the doors one by one. Some whispered, some buzzed. Each one had an intercom beside it, each one already glowing, each one showing a different version of himself, living there, sleeping, screaming, laughing. And behind each version, somewhere in the static, Sayaka, smiling, watching, waiting. Then he reached his door, door 701. The same cracks in the wall, the same scuff on the doorknob, the same photo taped inside the peephole, but on the nameplate, it no longer said Riku, it said Minobe. He turned around to run, but the hallway behind him was gone, erased. Just a wall of intercom screens now, all watching, all recording, all blinking in sync with him, except for one, the one farthest down the hall. Its screen didn't blink, it just whispered, "Come home." He walked back, turned the doorknob. The door creaked open. Inside, his apartment, exactly as he left it, lit only by the faint glow of the intercom, and Sayaka, sitting at the desk, facing away, hair down, back straight, breathing, waiting. He stepped inside. The door closed behind him, locked, and the intercom buzzed one last time.
The door clicked shut behind him. No wind, no echo, just the soft, deliberate click of something sealing itself. Riku stood in the threshold of his own apartment, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It didn't feel like anything. It felt like a memory, one that wasn't his. Sayaka sat with her back to him, at the desk, motionless. No flicker, no glitch, just the stillness of someone waiting to be seen. Riku didn't speak, because he knew it wasn't about words anymore. He stepped closer, and the air thickened, as if every moment of grief she had swallowed, every unanswered knock, every night of silence had gathered here, waiting to be witnessed. He circled the desk, saw her face, and it was calm, not peaceful, not angry, just hollow, as if she had been emptied out by the long wait for recognition. But her eyes, they weren't on him. They were locked on the intercom screen across the room, still glowing, still buzzing, still recording. He followed her gaze, walked to it slowly. The screen now showed the door from outside, live feed, but the hallway was empty until a buzz, and in the corner, a shape, a blur, standing still, then stepping forward. And what appeared on the screen wasn't Sayaka, wasn't her reflection. It was him, Riku, standing outside the door, looking into the camera, expression blank, lips moving, but no sound. He turned around, and Sayaka was gone. The chair empty,
the air still, but her presence lingered in the floor, in the wires, in him. The intercom buzzed again. He didn't press the button, didn't have to. The screen flickered automatically. The Riku on the other side began to knock. Once, twice, 3 times, and then, "Please, let me in." But Riku was already inside, wasn't he? He backed away from the screen, checked his hands, his breath, his body. Still here, still real. Then the feed shifted, and now the person outside was not quite him. Slightly different. The smile a bit too wide, the posture too still, the shadow behind him pulsing softly. Then the voice came again, but this time not from the screen, from inside the room, from the intercom speaker, from the walls, from the air itself. She was never the only one locked out. You just answered faster. The lights dimmed, the screen faded, and in the silence that followed, the buzzer rang one last time. Long, drawn out, slow, like a heartbeat stretched into eternity. Then darkness. Some say Riku moved out. Others say he vanished. The landlord never commented. The neighbors never noticed. The room was listed again within a week, renamed 701. Clean, quiet, affordable. A new tenant moved in. Young, quiet, grateful for the price. He set up his work desk by the window, unpacked his camera gear, wired his router. Noticed the old intercom still embedded in the wall. Curious, he pressed the button. Static, then silence, then a buzz. Exactly 2:17 a.m. that night. He woke to the sound, walked sleepily to the door, pressed the screen. Nothing but grain. Then, a voice, soft and flat. "Can you see me now?" He blinked, paused, touched the glass, and in the corner of the screen, just before it cut to black, a pair of eyes stared back. Not Sayaka's, not his own. Someone who remembered too much. Someone who was never let out. Someone still watching.